Msani Kumal, as well as the leader of the PKTT, taking the stand there at the Madlanga Commission, coming back for a third day after he fell ill after his first 2 days of testimony at the beginning of October. He now coming in talking about how it has been revealed that there's a member of the Hawks that seemingly is identified as Zungu, who's working with the Big Five cartel. This also just goes to show why the PKTT, when they were going for that takedown operation at KT Molefe's home, they rather felt to keep the information away from the Hawks when they were doing that operation. He also speaks about how the commission, of course, needs to know about the number of police that have been involved in many of operations that are seemingly taking place with either cartels or syndicates that they have been investigating. This, of course, that had led them to KT Molefe's house was the death of Armand Swart, and this now having revealed many of the other information that has led to the arrests of KT Molefe as well as Vusumuzi Matlala. He also spoke about on that day of the 6th of December, it was not only the house of Molefe that they had raided, but it was also that of Vusumuzi Matlala. And the commission had previously heard how the Hawks, of course, was at that operation at Matlala, at Molefe's house rather, when the PKTT had descended on his home. So let's now take you live where crime intelligence boss Msani Kumalo has told the Madlanga Commission of how syndicates and cartels are able to protect their interests through recruiting various members of the South African Police Service and other parts of the criminal justice system. Kumalo has continued his testimony after it was disrupted last month, like I said, when he fell ill as he was expected to begin his third day of giving evidence. Newsroom Africa's senior politics reporter Ziyanda Ngobo joins us from the capital this afternoon. Ziyanda, very good afternoon to you. We heard how the presence of the police is quite an alarming involvement with regards to some of these cartels. Simply very troubling when we hear from the crime intelligence boss speaking about that large number of SAPS members being able to be infiltrated within some of these operations. And we also heard when the ad hoc committee took place and the former Minister of Police, Bheki Cele, was speaking on how he realized that a large number of Matlala security personnel was made up of former task force members.
That's right. And, it's one thing to hear from Bheki Cele about former special task force members that are forming part of Vusumuzi Matlala's security company, but it's another to be listening to the testimony of Dumisani Kumalo this afternoon, where just before the lunch break, we were watching CCTV footage that was retrieved from Katiso KT Molefe's home, wherein a Sergeant F.E. Nkosi, who falls within the crime detection unit that's led under the command of the suspended Deputy National Police Commissioner Shedrick Sibia, visiting Molefe's home just a few days before the 6th of December 2024 takedown operation. Now, you'll recall that Sergeant F. Nkosi was also mentioned by Witness C as being the money man, the guy who would fetch money on behalf of Sibia, but also the same man who would have tipped off the likes of Vusumuzi Matlala and his colleagues about the fact that the members of the PKTT were at the Special Task Force offices on the 5th of December 2024. You'll recall that it was on that day of the 5th where they were getting that J50 signed off by a magistrate, but also to get backup the day before they went to Vusumuzi Matlala's home. But this afternoon, we've seen now how Nkosi, using a police vehicle, went to Katiso KT Molefe's home on the 27th of November, carrying a bag, didn't stay long. And this is exactly what Kumalo was describing to the commissioners, that these cartels, the Big Five cartel, actually had, within various layers of the South African police service and the criminal justice system, had people who were runners and informants for them to be able to sustain their interests. And this is why then Kumalo said they were not surprised when there was a team from the Hawks that arrived and intercepted and interfered, he says, with their operation on that day of the 6th of December. Listen to this.
During our investigation, it came out that there is an individual, a Zungu, that is from Toms of DPCI, that is working with the cartel. Now, and other pieces of information that will point towards that direction. So even before the takedown, we had that red flag that we need to protect this investigation against DPCI, if I may put it.
Now, you'll recall, Katlego, there was also a lot of mystery when you go back to the testimonies of witness C and to an extent witnesses A and B, but in particular witness C, about when it comes to the takedown operation, about how the call from Brigadier Lesiba Mokoena, there was a lot of debate about with whose phone he made that call to Captain Wanda, who is a former member of the PKTT. You'll remember that Brigadier Lesiba Mokoena said he spoke to Captain Wanda through Captain Barry Kruger's phone. But Captain Wanda had testified that he had spoken to Mokoena through an unidentified African male's phone. Now, today, the name of Mr. Boyim Tetwa has been mentioned by Khumalo as having been the one through whose phone Mokoena, who is the head of the Tactical Operations Management section within the Hawks, who spoke to Wanda, who was leading part of the team that was conducting that takedown operation. And it's this Mr. Mtetwa, whom we're told by Khumalo, tried to cross the red tape, claiming he's the brother of Katiso Katie Molefe, and that when the officials who were combing the scene refused to allow him to actually contaminate the scene, it is then when this Mr. Boy Mtetwa mentioned that he would be calling the Hawks, which Khumalo says they interpreted as a way for the Hawks to come and deal with them.
There was a person who called the Hawks, who called the head of the Hawks at the time. Do you know the person who made this call?
On the day of the takedown, we could not be able to identify, to identify the caller. But as the investigation was progressing, we managed then to narrow the scope towards the final identification of the caller, or as to the activation of the Hawks, either to be part of the operation against the lawful operation that we were conducting. Maybe to get to the...
And who was that person?
The person, so far, all our information is pointing towards a Mr. Mtetwa, who, according to our investigation, is the one who activated the call.
And so the reason why Khumalo says when the Hawks team arrived at the Molefe home in Sandhurst that they weren't surprised is because they'd already been receiving intelligence prior that there were some within the DPCI, that otherwise known as the Hawks, that were working with, the criminal cartel, the likes of this officer Zungu. But also, he tells a story about a meeting that was taking place during the investigation of Pretoria, the investigation into the kidnapping of Pretoria businessman Jerry Boshoga, where this particular victim had indicated a level of discomfort about having the investigations being conducted by Deputy National Police Commissioner Shedrick Sibiya's office. Listen in.
That investigation to be allocated to this team came as a result of a meeting that I was invited to by the National Commissioner with a victim a victim, I mean people that are closer to the victim of kidnapping. It is during that meeting that they shared their wish and their uncomfortability about this particular kidnapping case being investigated within the office of the Deputy National Commissioner, Lieutenant General Sbiya, because according to them, their information was Mr. Matlala was involved in the kidnapping, and Mr. Matlala is very close to the Deputy National Commissioner. So it is during that meeting that the instruction, in some cases, if not all cases, in the SAPS we work with instructions, not requests, that the team, GCI Ops, must take over this investigation.
So at this stage, we've just been hearing from Khumalo about the various layers within which there seems to have been infiltration by the cartels. And after the lunch break, there will be a picking up of that testimony, in particular that CCTV footage that shows Sergeant Effing Nkosi at KT Molefe's home just days before that takedown operation on the 6th of December last year.
All right, Ziyanda Ngcobo out at the Bridget Mabandla Justice College in Pretoria, giving us